signaling a new era for the United States.
President Trump says he was elected with a mandate to completely and totally reverse what he called a betrayal of the past 4 years.
For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day.
In his inaugural address inside the U.S. Capitol, the president promised a golden era of American wealth and expansion. Speaking after the formal address, President Trump told supporters he plans to pardon many defendants criminally charged and convicted for their roles in the January 6th Capitol riot.
Fox's Jared Halpern in Washington. Just before leaving office, President Biden announced preemptive pardons related to the January 6th investigation and for others, including his own siblings, aimed at shielding them from potential political prosecutions. Some Trump executive actions could happen at the Capital One Arena, hosting some of the inaugural events moved inside because of frigid weather.
It feels like this place is a coiled spring right now. We've got about 20,000 people who have crammed into this arena waiting for President Donald Trump to arrive. And you get the sense when he does show up, this place is going to erupt.
And Fox's Bill Malugin reports a desk is also waiting.
They just put the presidential seal on it. We are told that President Trump is going to sit down at that desk in front of this crowd of 20,000 of his most fervent supporters and start signing executive orders.
Orders expected to focus in part on border security. The new administration already ending use of an app that allowed nearly 1 million people to legally enter the U.S. with eligibility to work. Opponents considered that a magnet to the southern border. No Trump nominees are confirmed yet, so a variety of acting directors are being named, including immigration attorney James McHenry as acting attorney general. America is listening to Fox News.
I've just been feeling so sluggish lately. You should try the Metamucil 2-week challenge. The Metamucil 2-week challenge? Yeah, Metamucil 4-in-1 fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Start your daily routine now, and in 2 weeks, you could be feeling great. Well, it's been 2 weeks. How you feeling? Lighter and feeling great.
If you want to feel lighter by promoting digestive health, sign up to take the 2-week challenge at Metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline nasal spray?
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
A short-lived TikTok ban over the weekend may have led to an arson attack against a Wisconsin congressman.
Police in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, arresting a 19-year-old man who they say was upset over the TikTok ban and set fire to the office of his U.S. congressman, Republican Rep. Glenn Grothman.
Somewhat unprecedented. I can't think of any other congressman who has had their home office set on fire. I think I was just targeted because I am this guy's congressman.
Some minor exterior damage to Grothman's office before responding firefighters put it out. Police say the suspect admitted to starting the fire in response to the talks of the TikTok ban. He's currently being held in custody. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
A new report on global inequality says the world can expect at least 5 trillionaires within a decade, even as the number of people in poverty has barely changed in more than 30 years. The anti-poverty group Oxfam International calling for caps on CEO pay and better salaries for workers in its latest report, just ahead of the annual World Economic Forum meeting in Switzerland. A form of crypto featuring President Trump is rising in value.
Trump coin is a meme coin, meaning it's a highly speculative cryptocurrency. It's issued on the Solana network and is trading on most exchanges. Its price shot up astronomically hours after launch on Friday, putting it in the top 20 cryptocurrencies, according to CoinMarketCap. Supporters say Trump coin is a way to help fans monetize their support of the president and his policies. Critics say it's a conflict of interest. 80% of the coin's supply is owned by affiliates of the Trump organization.
Fox Business's Lauren Simonetti. The price of Bitcoin hitting new highs, topping $109,000 earlier today ahead of possible crypto-friendly moves by the Trump administration. Wall Street was closed today, marking Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Elisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois. Champaign and Van vicinity, wide and far-reaching cold wave weather conditions all the way down to the Gulf Coast, where wind chill advisories are in effect, along with winter storm watches and warnings and advisories for accumulating snow and ice. Places like Corpus Christi, Galveston, Houston, over towards Brother Johnny's place there in New Orleans, and east into the Florida Panhandle over the next couple of days. Back this way, maybe a snow flurry or an ice crystal later this afternoon out of this very cold, bitter cold air. The high at about 14, which is a pretty decent recovery. West wind, though, will be gusty all day long. Lingering flurry chance this evening. Bitter cold in the overnight, down near 5 below. Tomorrow, sunny, very cold at 5 above on a west wind. We'll bottom out near 0 with slowly rising temperatures tomorrow night. Wednesday, partly sunny, not so cold, back into the 20s there. A couple of snow showers and flurries on a cloudy Thursday at 31. Highs near 30 on Friday. And into the 30s we go for the weekend. Maybe a rain snow shower Saturday afternoon. For Stevie J Broadcasting, I'm meteorologist Greg Soldier.
Anybody in here expected anything different? Good college basketball game. Right down to the wire. Thought we handled a lot of tough situations today pretty well. You know, best player in the game played 8 minutes. You saw just a little bit of what he could do when he was in. Just controlled the whole game with pick and rolls and passes. And unfortunately, today he didn't get a play. Will Riley, I thought, was kind of broke out of what he's been in. Truthfully, I thought the game was the free throw line. Can't go on the road and miss 10 free throws. And a couple big plays when Trey White got fouled, shooting a 3 and missed 2 of 3, and then we give up the lob. Big play, and then we had the layup. Thought it would be an and one, and Will missed a couple. But, you know, can't come in here and miss free throws and expect to win against a team that I thought they guarded exceptionally well and took our 3-ball away. I thought Tommy, do want to mention, gutted it up. I thought he was really good. He's got strep throat, been on antibiotic for 3 days. Just the opportunity to play just feels awful. So all in all, I thought our bench was good, did a nice job, and thought we did everything situationally pretty good down the stretch.
Hey, what's up? It's the Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. I should say, now that school's about to be back in session, conveniently and to no surprise, it is now the Drive with Kyle and Piper.
Did I forget to wish Lana Merry Christmas or something? Because I come back here and all of a sudden he doesn't want to see me for another week.
You know, we wore him out last week. He had to do a full show throughout the week, 5 days. And at his age, 53, drink, as he would say. I can hear him saying that from the beach if he's listening poolside, beachside, whatever it might be.
He's got one in his hand right now for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
No problems on that front.
No doubt. We put a little too much wear and tear on him. So he had to get out of here, recharge the batteries. And we're excited to welcome you back. So welcome back, man.
Appreciate it. Wish I was coming back after a less frustrating game than yesterday's game to discuss this first hour. But
we've got a lot to talk about. It will be interesting to dive into it. Also, I am beaming a little bit because on the drive over, the report comes out from Adam Schefter that the Bears are hiring Ben Johnson, their guy, as their next head coach. The Lions offensive coordinator who architect the number one offense in the NFL. This year, they've been top 5 the last 3 years, is now taking over the reins in Chicago. So, Kyle, they didn't screw it up somehow, some way, as much as the 150 interviews they conducted, the fact that they were doing them on Zoom, and Eddie George popped up over the weekend. They got their guy, so I'm pretty happy.
I'm sure it feels good just to see them actually do the obvious thing for once. Like, everything was aligned in this cycle. You got this superstar offensive coordinator, one of the biggest hotshot OCs that's, been a head coaching candidate in the last 5 or 6 years, and not a ton of jobs open, and that they've been linked to the Bears job. The report came out during the season that he wanted the Bears job last offseason.
Yeah, right.
And now we kind of, for the last 2 weeks, I feel like I've seen rumors, well, what about Mike Vrabel to Chicago? What they want a leader of men, a real guy that's going to come in, and they actually just do the right thing and hire the best candidate on the board by far, and a guy, an offensive genius to pair with their second-year quarterback. they did it. They did the right thing for once.
They did it. And I get that Tom Brady is probably hard to say no to, but at 40-some years old, Tom Brady's not lacing them up anymore for you, and the Raiders don't have an answer at quarterback. So that, to me, was always like either Ben Johnson, if he's not going to take this Bears job. Now, don't get me wrong, whether it was Kevin Warren doing his deal and the Bears ownership not being one that you'd want to trust, which I could, if Ben Johnson whispered that to some reporter and that came out in an unnamed sourced article, I'd be like, I get it. You don't want to sign up for that franchise. Not to say that the Raiders are some kind of picture of competence and excellence. Not anymore, at least. It's been a long time since the John Madden days. But the fact of, if you're not going to take the Bears job, do you not believe in Caleb Williams? Do you not want to take what could be a franchise quarterback who was the number one pick in the draft versus a place where you don't have that answer yet? And
who is there to believe in Las Vegas?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know.
Who do they even have right now? Minshew? Or who is starting?
Aiden O'Connell, yeah. Make some moves. I don't know what assets they would have to try to climb in the draft. It's not thought to be a very strong quarterback draft.
Give me Caleb way over any of these guys coming out this year.
Big time. And I know there's a lot more that goes into it money-wise. Even some of the whispers around or things that have gotten out, just kind of skepticism last year. Even if the Bears did move away from Eberflus, would they have been willing to give Jim Harbaugh whatever it took money-wise to win that ultimately in terms of the sweepstakes for him? So
maybe you just want to live in Vegas year-round.
I mean,
hang out in
can't
Vegas.
argue with that.
You have a casino in your backyard.
Yeah, and you said it before the show and make a very good point. If you go there, you are battling Mahomes, which is the top of the top in terms of trying to win a division and set up home playoff games. Not exactly easy sledding, as Ben Johnson knows, now turning around and facing the Lions twice a year, the Packers, the Vikings. It's a very tough division. But I don't want to – we can go deeper into this because I know that fans out there want to hear about Illini basketball and what happened there in the Big Ten title chase in East Lansing and all the frustrations from that ultimately that come with the result and how we got there. But – that is the way, is trying to marry your potential franchise quarterback with a guy that can elevate him, that can put a scheme around to get the most out of your skill position players, to just, you can talk about leader of men, you can talk about head coaching experience, talk about all that, but the X's and O's have to align. You got to put those guys in successful positions, and Caleb was lucky to. I mean, it was tough. I mean, he doesn't fix the offensive line, and they still got a lot to do there. But it was obvious they were not doing a good job of putting him in a position to be successful. And now I feel like Bears fans can have that confidence that he'll give you the best shot possible to do that. So very excited. We'll see where it goes, but they at least didn't mess that thing up. So I am looking forward to what that looks like. Speaking of messing things up. The
officials. Oh, wait, did I say that?
No, that's where we were going. Heinies, Anderson, and crew there at Michigan State. Not the only reason. And Kyle, we were discussing this before the show, and I think it goes without saying, really, and people know how we are, and some people like to harp on the refs more than others. This one really seemed warranted. As somebody that saw it there in East Lansing and people that watched on the TV, you got national pundits weighing in as well. Like, it felt like that was such a huge part of yesterday where, yes, Illinois could have shot better at the free throw line. Yes, they could have had better shot selection and not settled for as many pull-up three-pointers. Namely, Kylan took a lot of those, and Kylan had a brutal first half. And also the fact that last play, he had a chance to maybe finish that at the rim, maybe throw a little bit more of a finesse drop-off to Tomislav Ivisic, versus the hot one that was too hot to handle and goes out of bounds. Should Brad have called a timeout? I know he doesn't do that there. Ultimately, he said that he doesn't like doing it offensively, albeit KJ wasn't on the floor. So I personally would have liked to see him take that timeout. But ultimately, when KJ only plays 9 minutes, and I was looking this up from my article, and I should know it in the back of my head, like, KJ literally played the same amount of minutes as James Augustine in the national title game against Sean May. 9 minutes for both. And KJ does have to be smarter for the fifth one. We can get into that. We can break down, and I know people have done it on on Twitter of analyzing all 5 of the fouls and what was legit, what wasn't, and a little bit of opinion one way or the other. But
can I actually start by asking you, because I'm very curious since you were there.
Yeah.
What did you see on the technical foul? Because the broadcast did a terrible job of showing what happened there.
I know that Orlando Antigua was getting pretty animated in some of these media timeouts, and Brad at times was trying to keep him at bay, because sometimes officials just automatically, when they're hearing from somebody other than the head coach, will use that as an easy trigger to call a technical foul. So he was definitely involved in conversations. I didn't see him like shoot up to the scorer's table all the way up to midcourt or anything like that. He did, the Illini bench did venture out to complain on that timeout, but at the same time, there were other instances Brad mentioned in the postgame where the Michigan State staff was out on the floor. Even after that call, I think within the first few minutes after that, there was a play where Illinois got a stop. MSU wanted a foul at the rim, and one of the Spartan staffers on the end of the bench shot down the baseline in protest a little bit. So it just feels like in the heat of the game, knowing it's crunch time, you got to let some things go. Let the teams decide it. And that it didn't play out that way. And it worked that way with KJ and the officials and some of the tight whistles that he got, and just outright just bad officiating. I know that in the heat of the game, it's difficult. That's a really difficult job, but man, that was tough breaks that Illinois just seemed to continue to get thrown. And I know that I asked Merez Johnson, and you've heard if you watch the videos with Brad that come out on the social media accounts, like, hey, it's us against the world on the road, and Merez is like, that's legitimately what it felt like there in East Lansing, that Illinois wasn't just fighting the 5 Spartans on the floor, that it was everything trying to go against them. And to their credit, they battled. Could they have still won the game? Yes. But to not have a lottery pick, top 5 guy out there for more than 9 minutes was just a killer, and it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to start with the technical foul is because, like I said, the broadcast did a terrible job. It was a timeout. Nobody had any idea a technical was called. They come back on the CBS broadcast like, oh, by the way, Illinois was given a T. The broadcast thought it was on Brad. I thought pretty clearly when they were kind of showing it that Brad kind of motioned towards Antigua like, no, it's on you. Mm-hmm. But based on the very limited view they showed, Antigua was just out there kind of holding Brad back and smiling. He wasn't actually complaining. So I wanted to know, by all means, if he was charging onto the floor, you got to give him one. That's the one I can't stand. As bad as the KJ stuff was, and it was awful and totally changed the game, that stuff every once in a while in basketball, especially in college and in the Big Ten, this isn't the first rodeo with this stuff. There's just going to be games where you get totally screwed on some foul calls. What I can't take is the technical with 3:30 to go in a close game, because that's an official not missing a play in live action and blowing a call. That's an official making a conscious decision to say, I am going to make a big impact on this result right now with a costly technical foul for 2 coaching staffs that were all up in the officials' face all game. And, I think the officials realized that there was not a lot of people pleased with their job early in that game. I can't take a technical there. That's just, unless Antigua was storming onto the floor and personally attacking the official, you just can't do that. That's just, come on, man. Even at that point, Illinois had made a pushback into the game, and Michigan State called the timeout, but it's a 4-point game with 3.5 to go. Do not give a technical foul, because that's one where it's all on you at that point. You didn't miss a call. You didn't have a bad day and just, blow a bunch of foul calls in a competitive physical game. That was you saying, all right, here we go. Mm-hmm. 2 free throws. This is me inserting myself into the game when I do not have to do that. And that's the one that pissed me off the most, was the technical foul. Now, the KJ stuff was huge too, and I thought at least 2 of those calls were flat out bad. I went back and watched them 5 separate times again to make sure. I'm am I really being biased here? No, the 4th one was ridiculous, and it changes the game. It's hard to even fully analyze the result, because Illinois loses by 2 in a game that their star player and the player that they built their offense around played 9 minutes, and the 9 minutes he did play, Illinois was great. Illinois was taking it to Michigan State. They couldn't stop Illinois. So it's just that totally changes the game, and it's hard to even draw a huge conclusion on Illinois' side of things, because that game looks totally different if KJ plays 30 minutes instead of 9. I think Illinois wins the game pretty clearly.
Yeah, I'm definitely in full agreement with you on that. Before we move on from the Tech, I want to ask you, as somebody that was watching the broadcast, did they show much as far as should it have been a tie-up? Was it a legit timeout? I know in texting some people, it sounded like one problem Illini fans had was that it was the ref closest to the bench, furthest away from the play, that gave them the timeout. Not to really know, did MSU really have possession here, or did they not? The ref that was right by the pile that was about to ensue, and it would have been a tie-up going Illinois' direction, that he wasn't the one making the timeout call.
That's what I was curious about, because the fact that he made the call and a Michigan State assistant got up off the bench and was like motioning towards the official, I thought he was granting a timeout from the bench, in which case that's a blown call, because coaches can't call timeout unless there's under 2 minutes. It's got to be a player. I did go back and see, I think Jeremy Fears was signaling timeout while Fiddler was on the ground. Now you can argue, did Fiddler really have possession for long enough while that timeout? Because it was like, if he had it himself, it was like 1 second before, I think it was Benham Rickhouse who tied him up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can argue that, and I don't know. I haven't gone back and seen that they were motioning timeout, and yeah, that official calling it, you question a little bit, because there's no way he could have seen if he had possession. But it's just the technical for me. Like, that is what Illinois has the right to question that, especially I think what Brad was saying, based on reading his lips, what they showed on the broadcast, he was pointing at the Michigan State bench saying he can't call it. And so if Illinois thought that they granted to him, don't call it, Tech. Just walk over and say, calm down. They called it, like, on the floor. Everybody's fine. They go back to the bench. Like, don't give it tea, because that just makes the situation 20 times worse.
Let's go through the 5 fouls, because, I mean, that is what people are talking about. They're trying to figure out how many were legit, what is certain takes and thoughts on each one. The first one was an obvious late call. I think it was a foul.
Yeah.
And the one thing you never like is that when there's contact by the rim, it's the furthest official away, who's 35 feet from the basket, who makes that call, and maybe is doing the whole, like, I'm going to judge whether the ball goes in or whether the opposing team then corrals it, and then I make a whistle. We see that in the NBA a good amount, but in college it's not as common. So I think that was probably a foul, but if the guy at the rim's not calling it, then you kind of just got to move on.
That was kind of the story of the whole day, was refs that shouldn't be calling stuff were the ones that called stuff. Like, from the Izzo motioning to the third ref who couldn't see the play to, like, could you get them to change this out of bounds call, and they change it?
Yeah, right.
While the other two refs clearly signaled Illinois, to, like, even the last play on the intentional missed free throw, I think it was Jeffrey Anderson from way behind the play, is like, well, no, that doesn't count, even though there was a guy right on. Just didn't that feel like a lot of officials were making some calls from bad angles or whatever you want to say? I do think the first one was a foul, though. He fouled him. It was just a late whistle.
And the change of possession or changing which way the ball was supposed to go, I do think it was out on Illinois on that one where Izzo was yelling at the officials to try to get him to change
They never
it.
showed a replay. They just they showed one, and it was a bad angle, and then they came back and are like, well, they're changing it.
It was odd, because Izzo complains to the guy that made the call, then complains to Jeffrey Anderson, who points the other, like it's going the other way, but then almost immediately Anderson then runs towards the other official, whispers in his ear, and then they change it to go the other direction. That guy, man,
Tom Izzo made that call. I mean,
right,
he reffed the play there.
Right. No, that's exactly what took place, certainly, and Anderson is famous for the high knees, but I've seen him enough here recently that he's not a very good official. And I get it. Over time, when you get to a point of seeing enough of these guys, and it is a difficult job, and look, I mean, the other honest part of it is the quality of the officiating in the Big Ten has been a problem for years. I mean, it's been something that is constantly discussed. When I see Kelly Pfeiffer, when I see DJ Carstensen, I don't know all of these guys. Courtney Green, he's among the worst, if not the worst. Certainly when Bo Borowski was doing, I'm like, oh boy, it's a Bo game, and it's going to be probably overmanaged and too many calls and ones that he's going to miss. I don't know anybody that I'd be like, you know what, good. This is a good crew that Illinois is getting, but Anderson has definitely worked into the conversation of, all right, this guy's Number one, a showman. Number two, not very good at it.
It's always a terrible thing when you know the name of the official well.
Yeah.
Like that's bad. You don't know the officials that do a great job. You never hear their name or know their name or take any notice of them.
And to Wade's point, I didn't know and recognize one of the officials who had, is it James Breeding, who was I think he called the tech on the Illinois bench. He made some other, I think he called the fourth foul ultimately on KJ. And I was reading on Twitter that Dan Hurley had been infuriated with him the day before, and I didn't watch any of that game against Creighton. But
there was a pretty impactful blown call at the very end of UConn Creighton. I was watching it. It was one of those, they tried to foul up three, but they clearly fouled him shooting, but they waved off the shot. Blown call. And it must have been him.
I'd never seen him before, recognized him, but he did have quite an impact there. All right, foul number 2 on KJ in the first half. This
Bad.
is before the media timeout. Ticky-tack bump on a drive should not have been called. It's a physical game.
Yeah, it was truly incidental contact. I thought that did not affect the drive whatsoever.
I agree with you. So Illinois takes control of the game early. Now, I think it's important, and then we can weave in the conversation. When should have KJ come back into the game? I know that was something that was really talked about a lot, and there was angst about as Michigan State went from a 10-point Illinois lead then to tying it up at the half. And I understand from Brad's standpoint, and let's just go right to it. It was great to get a Will Riley heater when you got it. I mean, we've been waiting for it. I haven't lost confidence in his abilities, even though, yes, he has. We've talked about his offensive struggles, namely his shot making. I think he's been pretty active here the last couple of games. I like that he's put some impact into rebounding and just effort that looked more like the Will Riley we got used to earlier in the season. But, man, he went on an epic heater with 16 points. It felt like you were stealing some time there for KJ, that you could ride that thing out. Yes, when you're up 10, you're definitely thinking that direction. MSU did flip momentum and be able to go on a run there. I don't blame Brad, and I know in hindsight now that you see how quickly KJ ended up fouling out when he came back into the game, you just don't want him to get number 3, because number 4 can come so easily in the second half, and then he's on the bench till the very end. So I understand why he didn't do it, didn't have as much of a problem as maybe some others did. What'd you think on that?
I would have liked to see him come back when Michigan State was inching closer late in the first half and see if he could make it through 3 minutes there and get Illinois a 6-7 point lead at halftime. I think that could have been really important in the game. However, I don't really, when I look back on it, question it all that much, knowing that he probably gets a third ticky-tack one and he's screwed. So the way it was called probably wasn't going to work out if he did it. I thought, I'm not a huge auto bench guy on 2 fouls when it's an important player. I understand it more for big men because I think it's just so easy for them because they're involved in like every defensive play. And if you're an opposing team and you know their starting center has 2 fouls, it's very easy to attack him. And, especially on a team that plays drop coverage, say go right into his chest, force him to blow a whistle. It's hard to avoid the action. For a guard, especially a guy as seasoned as KJ, who's played in physical pro league before and isn't a guy that has been one to get a bunch of cheap ticky-tack, reaching in type of stuff in the past. I think you could trust him to go 4 minutes here at the under 4 in the first half and not foul. Probably wasn't going to be the case the way it was called, and he did put himself in some bad spots at times too. He's not totally free from blame. But I did think when Michigan State got it tied at half, that hurt Illinois because they had built such a lead without him, and you had a Will Riley heater, and I mean heater, 16 points in like 5 minutes from Riley, and you enter halftime tied. I knew at that point it was going to be tough. KJ coming back was huge, but I thought Illinois, with as well as they had played early in the first half, could have really used like a 6-point halftime lead, and I thought KJ could have gotten that to him. So I would have liked to maybe see him come back, but ultimately it probably wouldn't have worked out, as we know.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to make the argument that all you have to do is analyze how Kylan was playing in the first half and then determine that you maybe roll the dice there with KJ, I wouldn't argue with you. Kylan was really bad in the first half and had a tough game overall, but in the first half, loose with the ball, bad decision-making in terms of his shot selection, and got beat numerous times on defense, which is something we have not seen pretty much throughout the entirety of this season up to this point. So he was struggling, and it was hard to trust the offense when the ball was in his hands. And if you could have, like you said, bought 3 minutes with KJ and maybe got Kylan a reset on the bench or whatever it was, just in general, Kylan playing more of a combo off-ball role, complementary to KJ, certainly a lot more comfortable for him than what we've seen in some moments. USC obviously still fresh in our minds, and in this one, 2 games where Kylan has struggled in that primary spot.
Ultimately, I think it probably wouldn't have worked out based on the way it was called. But
Kylan
really hurt Illinois, and that stretch from about the 7-minute mark of the first half to the end, he was just trying to do way too much offensively. He was almost trying to be like, okay, KJ's out, I'm going to try to do the KJ right now, or I'm going to just throw up a circus layup, and I'm going to try to make a circus pass, and got 2 shots sent to the first row by Cohen Carr, just very weak drives to the rim. I don't know. He didn't have a very good day. I tweeted out during the game, I'm like, does he have the flu or something? Because I've never seen him get blown by like this.
Neither.
It's like twice in a row that Trey Hallman beat him to the rim. I don't know what was happening with him, but that brings upon an even larger conversation of, I thought Illinois' best offense was when they ran it through Tomislav Ivisic, not Kylan Boswell with KJ off the floor. And it's different than when KJ was hurt, because you hope that you're not in the situation again where you have to play a almost full game without KJ. But I kind of learned that maybe Kylan's not that guy that should be running the show all the time if KJ's off the floor. I just don't think he's all that comfortable in that role.
Hasn't looked like it. And the handle, he's better than what he showed, I think, against Michigan State and even against USC as well. But he just, the ball was just loose in his hands, certainly. And I think that it seemed like he was either trying to do too much or wasn't sure of himself on some of his plays and into the paint. And for a guy that has really struggled from 3, just continually like taking those just stop and pop triples from a step or 2 behind the arc when it wasn't going. And Illinois in general was big time dried up from 3. That's not what you want offensively. I do want to circle back to Tommy. That was one of the big bright spots, I think, coming from this game. Let's go into the second half. The third foul is probably the one that has the most, what's the right way to put it? It's a judgment call, right? Yep. Or just one where you can understand, even if you don't like the call, even if you watch it in slow-mo replay, which, of course, the officials on the floor don't have the ability to do, you can understand why a ref might anticipate or just see the reaction from Akins and make the call. I didn't like it. I feel like Akins, even though there are different like still screenshots of, did Akins step on KJ's foot? Did their feet meet at the same time? It felt like it was a step on the foot and then kind of tumble, and maybe watching it live there in the arena, I thought he just flopped. I don't know that was the actual case. Maybe just really did lose his balance, but tough call. I understand why it was made. I don't love it, though.
I think I'm guilty of this one because live watching it, and even the first time they showed the replay, I could not believe they called it. I thought there was zero contact, and he tripped over himself.
Yep.
And a whistle was blown. Going back and watching it, KJ did get his foot caught up underneath his foot and tripped him. So I think you kind of have to call that. I mean, a guy, I don't know. It's one of those where I can understand the point of like, all right, you realize that this guy's got 2, and like it's probably incidental, so maybe swallow the whistle there. But at the same time, he did go flying to the ground, and it impacted an open layup. That one, after review, probably don't have an issue with. It's 2 and 4 to me that really were just unacceptable.
We can get to 4, which Brad had the biggest problem with. I do feel like, as an aside in general, Michigan State definitely was trying to consistently, even when KJ was not in the game, their guards to head ram into the paint and sell contact. And they were trying. I'm not saying that, Jaden Akins kind of has this ability to like put his off shoulder into whoever's challenging and then kind of make it look like he's getting fouled while also still trying to make the layup as well. That was something that I did notice throughout the game, not only when KJ was out there and on the bench. And I'm not saying that's like cheap or anything. That's just kind of you teach guards to go in there and seek some contact. And they're high in free throw rate as a team. They got some athleticism and speed at that guard position. And Akins, it just seemed unfortunate. And I always err on the side, and not even just because it's KJ, not because we know the ending. I always like erring on the side of let him play. Number 4 should never have happened.
That's awful. Yeah, that one was so bad. One of the worst calls I've seen this year.
For Carson Cooper to essentially push him over and then simultaneously fall down as KJ then falls down, and they call a trip or they call what? Like
I guess they claimed he pulled him down, which just did not happen.
Didn't happen, and can't happen. Can't happen as far as that call. You can't guess on that one. You can't get that wrong. Especially a player of that importance. It's got to be a play on at the very least, unless you legitimately see it. And that was a backbreaker for Illinois.
It's just such an easy no call. There's no reason to blow a whistle there. Two guys are wrestling for the ball. They both go down at the same time. Why blow a whistle on the guy that you are very aware of is a huge piece of the game and you've already called 3 on? Like you're guessing that he fouled again just to – I just don't understand that type of stuff. You know, when a guy that has already been a point of contention in the game with his foul trouble is fighting for a loose ball – and 2 guys go down, and it's been a physical game. It's 2 of the more physical teams in the conference, and you're going to blow a whistle and guess who fouled. Like, there's no way neither guy did anything on that play. Cooper and KJ was fighting for the ball. Actually, yeah, if you wanted to call a foul, Carson Cooper should have gotten it for the little shove of KJ while he was going at it. I don't want that called either. Just play on. 2 guys went down. That one was the worst of the worst, and you could just see it unfold. As soon as they both went down, the whistle blew. I'm like... And that's on KJ. You got to be kidding me.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just such a bad call, and it totally changed the game right there. Once he gets 4, you pretty much have to bench him for the next 10 minutes minimum, and I'm sure Brad would have liked to longer, but Michigan State went on a little run, and he had to bring him back.
During that stretch, Illinois does extend the lead back to 5. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn played well. I really liked the minutes from Dre. Even thought he probably should have got a little bit more of a run in the first half. He gets an and one layup to make it 52-47. But like you said, MSU ends up tying it shortly after that, quick 5-0 to make it an even game. And then they ended up going on, I don't know what it ultimately was. I think it was 9-1, 9-1 run from the 10.5-minute mark to 7.5. They're up 7. Brad's hand gets forced. You put KJ back in the game. KJ gets an and one. For an offense that has stagnated, that started taking too many threes, KJ gets downhill and 1, gets downhill again, sets up Tommy for a bucket inside. And watching it in person, felt like Frankie Fiddler was baiting KJ.
He did.
Into that foul. And I've seen, and I know you get into adding qualifiers and who the player is or what's happened up to that point. Was it a foul? Yeah, probably a foul. You can't, in watching the replay, he kind of wraps his hand around the waist a little bit of Fiddler, which you can't touch a shooter on that and expect to get away with it. But I have seen officials, when they can tell the shooter is not just making a basketball play to go up there and shoot the ball, that they're baiting another guy into a call, they don't give it to him. And I'm not saying that as the standard, that it always happens. And also, too, when a star player has 4 fouls and maybe even got wronged on a call or 2, you might understand the situation. I don't want to go too far with it. If Zach Edey had 4 fouls and there was contact at the rim, do you think Zach Edey's getting
absolutely not
getting the whistle on that?
No.
Or even, if it was Kofi or if it was Io or whatever it might be. So I didn't like the call. Watching it back, yeah, I think it is by the book of foul. KJ's got to be smarter. Mm-hmm. He's got to just let Fiddler take that jump, that 10 to 12 footer, goes in, whatever, doesn't, then you play on. Either way, you play on and live to fight some more minutes where you really needed him. So I don't know if it was frustration. I don't know if he just, whatever it was, got baited by a veteran player and he made a youthful mistake, but that was tough. But it was definitely of the 5 up there with the first one of being a legit foul.
It was definitely a foul. It was just, you could see it happening as it was happening. KJ was playing too close to him. He was kind of on his hip. And Fiddler, if you've watched him at all this year, does this. Like, this is his game. He wants a foul every time he goes up to shoot. I don't remember the last time. I guess he hit 1-3 coming off a little curl in this game. Other than that, I haven't seen him attempt a shot without trying to get a foul call. So that's just on KJ. This one is the one, to me, where the blame has to fall on KJ. You can't be anywhere near him on that. Knowing who he is, you've gotten the scouting report on Michigan State's entire team. You know this guy likes to bait fouls and sell them. You're coming off of a little ball screen or whatever the case was, and you want to give up mid-range shots anyway. Him taking that unguarded, Illinois lives with. There's no need to get on his hip and make any contact knowing you have 4, and that's the one to me where I was more frustrated with KJ than the officials on that play. The other 4, I think KJ was just playing basketball. That one, you got to have a little bit more awareness, I think.
I agree with that. And to kind of tie a bow on the KJ foul situation, still a lot to break down from this game, what it means for Illinois going forward. Do we need to write them off or get close to writing them off in the Big Ten title picture? We can have that discussion, but I just can't remember a star player who, like you said, and accurately so, has not battled foul trouble throughout the year very much. I think Oregon, he did a little bit, and that's when Dre had to play more minutes in that one. But he hasn't been flirting with fouling out in other games and doesn't have this reputation of being a really handsy guy or whatever it might be. I can't remember a star player in the Big Ten playing 9 minutes. I just can't. Maybe it's short-term memory, being too skewed towards that, but that's just crazy to me. I know you're on the road. I know it's tough and all of that, but that was one that I just can't compare it to anything other than legitimately played the same minutes as James Augustine.
Yeah, I was 1 year old during that national title game, but I can imagine, obviously in the national title game, it's going to take on a lot more weight, but I can imagine it was similar frustration of like every foul.
Yeah.
Being on the bench, as soon as he comes back in, 9 minutes is just insane.
It's crazy. All right, 80-78 in East Lansing. Big Ten title hopes, are we still holding out those for Illinois? What would need to happen for the Illini? I did dig up. There has been an Illinois team within the last couple of decades that has been an even deeper hole in the Big Ten standings and still found a way to be crowned Big Ten champions. We can talk about that, talk about some positives. Tomislav Ivisic, certainly, more on Will Riley, DGL, and where we go from here. So if you want to weigh in, you can. 217-359-2255. Hit us up on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. We got plenty who have, and we'll get to those as we go along. We'll be back. This is The Drive.
Tim, talk to me about Gale Forex Trucking. Any news?
A couple of new drivers on board that joined the team, and I think I may have one open spot left, maybe 2. And we can always buy more trucks if they're good drivers. But it's been a challenge, but everybody has stayed safe, and I appreciate that. We've got a great group of guys that know that they have to safely service the customers, and they're doing that.
Describe the kind of driver you would love to hire.
Somebody that wants to work, knows the importance of being on time and servicing the customer, but also enjoys their quality home time with their family. It's difficult for truck drivers that are stuck out on the road for weeks at a time, so we just don't do that to them. We want them to have that quality time, rest their brain, rest their body, be with their family. That's real important to us.
How can people reach Tim Onstock?
They can get me at TIMO@GFTLOG.com.
From computer systems to brakes and tires too, at PDR, fixing cars is what they do. Remember, when you turn the key and the car won't run, call 367-9481 or use their dedicated text-only line at 383-0619. Additional information including repair quotes and online scheduling requests available from the website at pdrauto.com. Remember, they are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR. Sarah Champagne Managing Partner Ben Quattrone.
We're always looking for people. You can go online and apply on our website. We never know what we're going to need. We're always expanding. We're always building more and growing our business. If we don't need a person and they come along and we find out that they're an eagle, they're a star, we'll hire them. We'll put them somewhere and wait for the spot we're going to have them working.
Learn more at sarahchampagne.com.
At Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people with amazing service, great design advice, and unbeatable selection and the best prices in town. It's the perfect time to update your home with waterproof flooring, carpet, hardwood, tile, and more. Then complete your rooms by shopping our incredible selection of furniture and accessories. We also offer great financing options. Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people.
JT Barnhart, president of OSF Healthcare.
As part of my role as president of OSF and have the campuses in Urbana and Danville, it's really just promoting the services that we offer, all of the avenues that we have to take great care of people who live in this area. We had a great opportunity with the Urbana Park District to help support their new wellness center. We did a scholarship fund for the next 5 years that'll allow 400 to 500 community members who live in Urbana to be able to access the center with OSF. And so that came out great. We want to be easy to use, quick access, be able to schedule appointments timely, be able to get seen by specialists within a week or two. That's not always the case in town, so we pride ourselves on that. We hope you don't ever need an emergency room, but if you do get hurt and you are injured, our ER, I think, is top notch. And Dr. Bloomstrand in Urbana, the program that he runs, our nursing care, we're going to get you in quick, going to get you taken care of and get you home. Just always love to promote the service in the emergency room.
We already touched on how great the website is. For more information, osfhealthcare.org.
We would like to invite you to the St. Joseph Ogden FFA auction February 1st at the St. Joseph Ogden High School. Dinner and silent auction begins at 5, followed by a live auction at 6. There are no tickets needed to attend, and anyone is welcome.
Items to be auctioned off include fire pits, solo stove, various Milwaukee tools, door-lock welding table, various silent auction baskets and gift certificates from local businesses.
You can learn more about our auction at our Facebook page, St. Joseph Ogden FFA.
Back on the Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. We've got a lot of texts. Let's get to some of those before we continue our conversation and just focus on some of the bright spots for Illinois. And we will dive into, I want to get Kyle's thoughts as well. Where should we put the odds, the feeling on whether Illinois can still chase this Big Ten title and make it feel like a legit thing that they can capture? But Daryl says, the last one shouldn't have been called when Fiddler jumps backwards into him creating the contact. That's not a normal basketball play. Refs need to let that go. Again, seeing it live, it felt like it looked like an obvious bait for KJ. Doesn't mean he should take the bait and be able to get away with it. Watching the replay, it did look like maybe if the hand doesn't wrap around on the hip, maybe he doesn't get called for it. But again, sometimes referees can, I've seen it many times where the ref senses the player chasing the foul more than the bucket and doesn't give it to him. So just if there was some kind of karma, if that's a thing or whatever, or just kind of makeup call, we do see makeup calls that the ref would be like, you know what, we're not going to foul him out here. We've already put him in a terrible spot. But obviously that didn't happen. 816, everything you guys said was right on, and add in that this was a national TV island game right before NFL playoffs. You want to showcase your conference with two of the top 3 to 4 teams and best players. You essentially foul out of the game one of the conference's most exciting and talented players this season, thus making the game less entertaining. Just head-scratching from every angle. Thanks for the great coverage. Yep.
You know, it was interesting. I was on Twitter a little bit after the game, and I saw some comments. Like, of course, you know, you go into every comment section. It's like, well, Michigan State fan, haha, you know, all these crying fans and Illinois fans, oh, the refs screwed us. But then there were some, I saw a couple comments of, like, actual neutral fans, like, man, I was excited to watch Kasper Giacochonis, this superstar, for the first time, and I didn't get to. Thanks, refs. I'm like, yeah. There you go. It's a national TV game showcasing one of the best players in the conference, one of the best point guards in the country, and a top 20 game in its own standalone spot. And the best player on the floor is not going to play because we're gonna call it really tight and just make up some foul calls on him, make sure he's on the bench. It's just nobody wants that. Nobody needs that. The officiating just has to be better. And I get that. ultimately you don't want the officials to change how they call just based on who it is, because it's,
sure.
you don't want to give guys star calls or anything like that. But there should be some awareness, especially like the fourth one being very obvious. Like, this guy is the best player on this floor. We've called 3 fouls on him. We've gotten yelled at for every call. We're not going to guess and make up a phantom call here and blow a whistle unless we are sure that he dragged him to the floor, tackled Carson Cooper to the ground. We're going to swallow our whistle and let these guys play. You can do that, and nobody would complain.
For sure. Yep. Bad for your product. Bad for just the idea of let the teams decide the Big Ten title. Let the teams go out there and have both squads go at each other, and let's not have it be because of some kind of tilted scale because we messed it up or whatever it might be. That's of course not what happened. And again, Illinois had a chance to still win, but obviously we're put in a really, really tough spot. So let's just get to that, Kyle. We'll still have plenty of time next hour to sift through all these texts and get to your questions as we weigh in on that. Illinois currently 5-3 in the league standings. Michigan State at the top, 7-0. Purdue 7-1. Michigan 6-1. Wisconsin's a half game in front of Illinois at 5-2. So Illinois is 3 games back in the loss column of Michigan State. Michigan State, oh, by the way, top 10 in the AP poll today, if anybody cared. AP poll, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole, but Illinois is in the net and also on KenPom, still graded as the top Big Ten team. Illinois 9th on KenPom, I think 8th on the net. But with Michigan State, they still have after this, now they have a decently favorable road, which they had leading up to that game against Illinois to build a 7-0 record in league play. They're at Rutgers. You never know. Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper can go off. That is well within their capabilities. Then it's home against Minnesota, at USC, at UCLA, home against Oregon, home against Indiana, before they come to Champaign for the rematch game. Boy, that's going to be a fun night at State Farm Center. But what do you make of this? We can get to the Illinois side of it as well, where Illinois has, you look at KenPom, they're not projected to be an underdog for the next 3 weeks, really. The next 6 or 7 games are ones that they'll be favored to win and certainly are capable of doing. How are you viewing 3 games back in the loss column, trailing Purdue, trailing Michigan? What do you think of Illinois' potential to go on a hot streak, go on a 6-7 game winning streak, be able to beat Purdue at home, beat Michigan State in a rematch, and get really back into this Big Ten title picture where you feel like it's a legit chance and something we're talking about in the final week of the regular season?
Kind of go back and forth on it because logically speaking, I think it's fair to say it's very unlikely Illinois wins the Big Ten after losing yesterday. It just being 2.5 back right now, and the fact that Illinois still has a handful of tough games. I mean, you see the other 4 top teams in the conference each another time in your final 12 conference games, and 2 of those are on the road. Part of me also, though, in the back of my mind feels like a run's coming for this group. Like, you shouldn't be 5-3 right now, and there's been some results that have just not gone Illinois' way, and we've seen Illinois, especially against legitimately inferior competition with KJ in there, blow teams out to where it hasn't even been a thought that they're going to get upset. And you look at this upcoming schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois reels off like the next 8 before Duke. I think you got 8 conference games before Duke, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right, yeah.
I would not be shocked if they won all 8 of them, especially with how manageable it is. At Wisconsin on the very back end of that, I believe is the only truly tough, Illinois might not be favored in the game. Obviously Michigan State comes here, and you got some pesky road games in there, no question. But I think this team has the potential to really get rolling here pretty quick. I think we've seen some of the early kinks get worked out in terms of just, whether it's late game execution or just guys settling into roles, figuring out, Trey White getting more consistent and, how does the big rotation play out and just obviously KJ putting himself in a position where he's the best player on the floor every night. I don't know. I wouldn't write Illinois completely off just yet. I think it's unlikely. I think you have to kind of put in your mind that, hey, we're probably working towards March at this point, and the Big Ten title maybe isn't something that we should be tracking nightly right now until Illinois really puts themselves back in the mix. I still think there's a chance. And every opportunity still in front of Illinois, because you got at Michigan, Purdue here, Michigan State here again, and at Wisconsin, and those are the other top 4 teams with you. I think there's still the potential for them to sneak up and do it.
I'm not shutting the door on it. I think there's a handful of reasons. One being that I agree with you, and again, I mentioned the fact that they're favored in a number of these games coming up. It is actually, so it's 9 games in the Big Ten before Duke. You're favored in the next 8, all the way through the rematch against Michigan State. You're at Wisconsin after that, where Ken Pom has Wisconsin as a 1-point favorite. That's a game that Illinois can obviously win. They can win. They can beat anybody. We know that.
Wisconsin 9 times in a row.
Yeah, right. No doubt. And just home against Maryland, I know the Terps historically or recent history says that that's been and they are a talented team. I'm not going to discount that, but they haven't been playing great basketball here recently. Northwestern won't be easy, but one that you should definitely win. At Nebraska, tough place to play. But again, Illinois, if they play up to or near their capabilities, they should win, 6 in a row, really. If they're answering the bell night after night, they should be able to reel off a nice little win streak here. And that could definitely give them a chance. Like, it'll be interesting. Somebody of Purdue and Michigan's taking a loss in West Lafayette coming up on Friday. Who are you rooting for to take that? That's an interesting conversation that maybe we could break down.
I have a very clear answer there.
You want Purdue to lose?
I want Purdue to lose a home game.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I don't know if they will otherwise, right?
My theory right now is that Purdue's going to win the conference.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
I think they're in a pretty decent spot.
Said here recently, I know you haven't been on for the last couple of weeks, but I haven't given Purdue until probably last week enough of consideration. It felt like I didn't bury them, but the talk was Illinois, Michigan at the very top of the pecking order. Of course, you respect Michigan State's run here, and then Purdue probably lingering out there where I'm not giving them enough due. But if they're going to be a team that doesn't lose at home, and obviously they still have maybe the Big Ten Player of the Year in Braden Smith, right up there with obviously KJ in terms of consideration, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough to beat them out for a three-peat. And, of course, you are playing into the fact that you could have a tie, a co-Big Ten title, even a three-way tie, even a four-way tie. On that note, I wrote that it was Bill Self's 2001-02 team. They were 4-5 in Big Ten play after a loss at home to Michigan State. At the time, Ohio State was 4 games ahead of them in the standings at 8-1. Indiana was 3 games ahead of them at 7-2. Frank Williams and company then went on to win their next 7 to close out Big Ten play. They beat Michigan State in the rematch, which actually was in East Lansing. They won that. They beat Indiana and Champaign. Indiana was tied for the league. That's tough to say. Ultimately, when they came to Champaign, but Illinois beat them, and then they won on a game winner. Certainly one that Illini fans remember there in Minneapolis against Minnesota to make a 4-way tie for a Big Ten title, which the trophy, they don't split it up into 4s. They'll roll out 4 trophies if we need them. And I think it's possible for this team. And I think this team is a lot more capable. I always considered they would be hitting their stride around this time or into February. I'm more in on Illinois being USC game aside, which, yes, you had a letdown. Yes, and KJ obviously was out, of them being more consistent than I maybe would have thought they could be at this point. I think this is a team that has the capabilities with their defense, with their depth, with certain guys that can step up. Because KJ's consistency is something that I would have been hard to peg as an 18-year-old freshman, and he's just been night after night, save for Michigan State, a walking 18 points, 5 assists, and a guy that I trust to be that steady, high-level player.
Yeah, that's what I think ultimately when he's out on the floor, we've seen now for a month plus, Illinois has looked pretty unstoppable most nights when he's out there actually playing. And you go back to the Tennessee game as the last time that Illinois looked very pedestrian when KJ was out there playing heavy minutes. And I think Illinois has the potential to just get rolling with a favorable stretch coming up.
I know we're due for a break. Real quick, Bill says on the Maximum City Recycling text line, doors shut, Illinois' roster age and style of play will yield inconsistent results. 3-point shooting, they've got to find a way to shoot it better game in and game out. Certainly they do other things when they're offensive rebounding, when they're getting the rim more consistently, which KJ plays into that a lot, that can make up for it. But they have been a team that's been really opposite ends of the spectrum. They're either lighting it up or they are like 5 for 24 like they were against Michigan State. We'll talk more Illinois basketball as we go along. Get to your texts. Due for a break. We'll be back. This is The Drive.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced.
Vowing to completely reverse actions taken by President Biden.
Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense.
Some of those actions will focus on border security. He's also expected to pardon many people convicted of roles in the Capitol riot. Today, criticizing a series of last-minute preemptive pardons from the outgoing president aimed at shielding people who might be targeted in the new Trump administration, including Biden's siblings and former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who led a January 6th investigation. The now former President Biden giving a farewell speech at Joint Base Andrews.
We're leaving office. We're not leaving the fight.
Adding there's a lot more to do after hearing the Trump inaugural address. Inauguration Day falling on Martin Luther King Day. King's daughter, the Reverend Bernice King, warning that anti-woke rhetoric is being used to divide and distract people from real issues of injustice. America is listening to Fox News.
I've just been feeling so sluggish lately. You should try the Metamucil 2-Week Challenge. The Metamucil 2-Week Challenge? Yeah, Metamucil 4-in-1 Fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Start your daily routine now, and in 2 weeks, you could be feeling great. Well, it's been 2 weeks. How you feeling? Lighter and feeling great.
If you want to feel lighter by promoting digestive health, sign up to take the 2-week challenge at Metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline Nasal Spray?
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Investor Kevin O'Leary, who's part of an offer to buy TikTok, is hoping the new Trump administration will address many issues involving China, including the theft of intellectual property from U.S. businesses.
The bottom line, and I think you're getting a sense from this administration, we're in an economic war and competition with China. They want to become the dominant economy on Earth. That's their plan.
O'Leary also telling Fox News he expects the TikTok situation to get more heated now that a federal law aimed at forcing divestiture is in effect, possibly complicating efforts to keep the app going in the U.S. while also addressing national security concerns. New Jersey's Democratic governor is asking President Trump to re-examine the federal government's approval of New York City's first-in-the-nation congestion pricing program, which kicked in earlier this month, charging vehicles money to enter parts of Manhattan during peak times of the day. Governor Phil Murphy calls it a disaster for commuters in neighboring New Jersey. One of Taylor Swift's exes apparently has something to say.
English musician Matty Healy could be getting ready to get everything off his chest about his turbulent relationship with Taylor Swift, who he briefly dated in 2023. British tabloid The Sun reporting Healy would break his silence in the next album from his band 1975 with the title track God Has Entered My Body. An alleged lyric in the song is "Keep your head up, princess, your tiara is falling." This after reports that Swift blindsided him by appearing to reference their romance in her latest album. Healy responding to a post on Reddit which shared a portion of that Sun report, writing, "Huge if true."
Fox's Lillian Wu. College football crowns a national champion tonight. Ohio State and Notre Dame vying for the title after the sport's first 12-team playoff. And Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for Eastern Illinois. Champaign-Urbana this Saturday. Widespread cold wave weather pattern all the way down to the Gulf Coast and far east as well towards the Atlantic seaboard. And Inauguration Day will feature temperatures in the teens. Meanwhile, winter storm watches, warnings, and advisories all the way down to Brownsville, Houston, Galveston, Corpus Christi, over towards New Orleans and east towards Panama City and Tallahassee and Jacksonville in the coming days for snow and ice potential all the way down there. Around here, maybe a couple snow flurries this afternoon, even a couple of ice crystals in this bitter cold air up aloft. Mostly sunny, the high to about 14. Gusty west wind. Watch the wind chills. A few flurries tonight, maybe early on with a bitter cold low of 5 below. Diminishing west wind for the day tomorrow. Sunny, very cold at 5, up to 24 on Wednesday. A couple of snow showers and flurries Thursday at 31. Highs near 30 on Friday. Maybe rain, snow shower Saturday. Dry Sunday. Weekend highs in the 30s. For CVJ Broadcasting, I'm meteorologist Greg Solgay.
It is the Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Plenty of text on the Max Twin City Recycling text line, 217-359-2255. If you want to weigh in, about to get to more of those. Before we do, Kyle stumbled into another reference point where, hey, 2.5 games back in the Big Ten title chase is not insurmountable. Kyle, hit us with the details.
If you really want some hope, 2 teams did it in the same season as late as February 15th. On the schedule. That's still almost a month away, because I was thinking that 2019-20 season, obviously Illinois was in the mix. They finished, I think, 4th alone, 1 game back of the 3-way tie between Maryland, Wisconsin somehow, and Michigan State. And if you look at that race, Maryland went into East Lansing and beat Michigan State on Saturday, February 15th, 2020. And at that point, they had a 2.5 game lead on both Michigan State and Wisconsin with only 5 games left in the conference slate. So you needed a little bit of a choke for that to happen. Thankfully, there's more time now. There's almost a month more time. But 2 teams came back from down 2.5 games each in the same season and made it happen. So there's some extra hope for you.
I like that. Is Michigan State capable of the choke, do you think?
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
I do. That's why I want Purdue to take a couple more losses, because I think they're less capable of a collapse or they lose 3 in the final 2 weeks. I think Michigan State, a losing streak is going to happen for them at some point. I'm sorry. They found a way to win. Give them credit. You know, obviously being 16-2, 7-0 is not easy to do, but this isn't a top 10 team in the country. It just isn't. I'm sorry. Top 25, sure.
Yeah, and I think that they are one of those like higher floor, lower ceiling teams. And to their credit, they're better than I gave them credit for going into the year.
No doubt.
I think they're a good defense. They have good depth, some athleticism on their roster as well. But there's a cap ceiling for them. They're a team that doesn't shoot the 3 very well. I still don't trust their big guys. Ultimately, I think that can limit them, especially against teams that have a good front court. Illinois is one of those, but it wasn't enough to tilt the scales. I want to talk about Tommy and Merez here coming up, but I am getting with you on the Friday night matchup at Mackey, which I think most people would say when you're looking at a Big Ten title contender, if there's one that goes the whole season not losing at home, which it seems like that's been one with Purdue, there's always a big task to beat them there if Michigan doesn't do it, I don't know that anybody does.
Me neither.
Later in the season, say Purdue loses that game, they would still have to go to Ann Arbor, to Illinois, and to Michigan State. So that would be a way to maybe rack up some losses for Matt Painter's side. I wonder about Michigan. I admittedly didn't see the game against Northwestern. I know it went to overtime. I know that there was talk out there that Chris Collins' squad got jobbed and that Collins said that Vlad Golden should go into acting or whatever that ultimately was.
What a great quote.
Yeah.
More coaches just say stuff like that after the game, please. That's fantastic.
No doubt. No doubt. Tell us how you really feel. It was huge for Dawson Garcia to knock down that from near half court, and whatever it might be with Michigan, who they're a really good team, very good offense. Those two bigs you got to deal with. They do shoot, contrary to Michigan State, they shoot the three really well. What have you seen in terms of, is there more chinks in the armor now with Michigan where they won't necessarily cruise to some big lead in this thing?
I really don't think so, because they've shown by far the most vulnerability of anybody. Their 4 losses this year. Wake Forest on a neutral floor. I don't think Wake Forest is going to make the tournament this year. If not, they're a bubble team in a bad ACC. Arkansas on a neutral floor. They don't have a win in conference. That's a disaster over there. That Illinois win's not aging
quad
very
two,
well.
yeah.
Oklahoma on a neutral. Oklahoma had lost 3 in a row. Now, give them credit. They were ranked 12th at the time, but I think that's a team that's probably going to struggle come SEC. They were probably a little bit overrated, and they've really struggled. I think they've lost 4 in a row now recently. And then at Minnesota, the worst team in the Big Ten. So they lose to bad teams. They lose to teams they should beat, and that makes me think they're going to drop some games that they shouldn't. And I find it hard to believe they'll just sweep Illinois and Michigan State and Purdue and Ann Arbor. So you lose a couple of those. Plus, I think go on the road to like a Nebraska if they do that. I don't know what they have, but some games like that, I think they absolutely could lose more than a Purdue could, or even a Michigan State could.
Last thing I want to mention on this note before we move on, Michigan State side of it, you'd love to see them, if you're a fan of any other team, maybe have a letdown at the rack coming up this weekend, or early in February they go to USC and UCLA.
I'd be shocked if they sweep that West Coast swing. That's tough.
USC's playing a lot better. And UCLA, they got right against Iowa, man. They put the hammer down on them.
And Iowa still can't guard a practice dummy.
Shocking,
right? My goodness. The first half against UCLA, I flipped that on. It was a late game, and it was a layup line for them.
Boy.
And UCLA wasn't scoring at all before that game. Mick Cronin was blowing up because his team was soft, and they could not have had easier shots against Iowa.
Talking about how many times he's seen the Statue of Liberty in however many weeks. Anyways, later in the schedule for Michigan State, at Illinois, home against Purdue, at Michigan, at Maryland, home against Wisconsin, at Iowa, home against Michigan. It gets tough. It gets really tough for them. So
I think there's like 4 losses in there probably.
Yeah.
So
I don't think this thing's over. Now it's on Illinois to be consistent, to win the games that you should win, and then to really make Michigan State pay in the rematch game.
It's funny. We talked about before Big Ten play started, I think I asked, what record do you think wins the conference? And I think we landed on like 14-6.
I think that's what it was. Yep.
A team's going to get above that now. I think that's clear that teams have separated themselves. Do you think a team gets to 16 wins?
I don't think so. Do you?
I think Purdue has the best chance.
Man.
I think Purdue can.
I think they can.
If they get Michigan at home on Friday, I almost would probably have to predict 16-4, because at that point I'd say 10-0 at home for them, and they've already won 4 road games. 3
at Minnesota, at Rutgers, at Washington, at Oregon. The Oregon one was
so they'd need
nice
2 more road wins the rest of the year. Now it's going to be tough because 3 of those are against Michigan, Illinois, and Michigan State.
Yep.
But you get one of those and then one other road game, and you're 16 wins. I'd get a little nervous.
That's true. They at Iowa and at Indiana are the other ones. They're going to sweep Indiana.
Yeah. I think maybe Purdue gets to 16, which would mean Illinois could only lose one more time. I think it's very possible that there's like a 3-way tie at 15, but the margin for error is very slim for Illinois now. You got to go on a mega run, protect your home court, do not lose at home the rest of the year. Even Michigan State and Purdue have to win those. And then, Yeah, you can't lose like at Nebraska. That's a sneaky game, a bubble team, but you got to go take care of that one if you want to win the Big Ten. You can't lose that one.
Maybe I should give more consideration to 16-4. I mean, yeah.
And like Michigan State's 7-0 right now. I think we do have to put that in perspective. Like
No doubt.
that gives
No
you
doubt.
a nice little cushion there. Even if you're not fully buying them as like they're going to go to the Final Four.
No doubt.
They could stumble their way to 16 too just by grinding them out.
Yep. And teams got to, I know we're not putting Breslin at Mackey's level here recently, but it's a tough place to play. That was the best I've seen it. I've been there a number of times now, but just haven't caught it on a night where Michigan State's good enough, or the game matters enough to where it's the top-notch, amped-up zone in that environment, and it really was there yesterday. Okay, let's talk about Tommy and also Merez. Merez had a really nice outing off the bench, 11.6 rebounds for him in 17 minutes. And Tommy, you mentioned it earlier, the passing out of the top of the key, and I felt like Illinois' offense showed whether it was a new wrinkle or just something they kind of doubled down on with Tommy as a ball in the hand, offensive hub playmaker. We saw Kylan cutting down the lane a number of times.
They ran one 3-man action like 5 times late in the second half where you had Merez setting a ball screen for Kylan. Merez then slips to the rim. Kylan throws it to Tommy on the other wing, and he throws it into Merez, like just lobbing it over a guy that is shorter.
Yep.
Very interesting. Like that had a lot of success, and Tommy's felt like every pass Tommy threw was right where it needed to be every time.
He has really good feel for the game and touch on those passes, high-low action. There's not a lot of teams at the 4 spot that can probably deal with Merez's physicality. When Merez is finishing at the basket, as of right now, at a pretty good rate and actually making free throws a lot better than he was earlier in the year. So that's been something too. Will Riley cutting as well on a couple of those that Tommy found him as well. So let's talk more about that as that wrinkle. Maybe that's something that when KJ's off the floor, that kind of is your igniter offensively to create action and to be a guy that you're putting the ball in the hands of Tommy to make those plays. And he only goes 1 of 6 from 3. A couple more of those go down. Obviously, it's a different ball game, and maybe you pull that thing out. He's obviously capable of it.
And Brad said he had strep throat.
That's true. That's true.
So maybe the shots were a little short or something.
Could be something to do with it as well. So, yeah, and I know we had a text here, if I can find it. It said, Dan says, I think Underwood went to the 2 big man lineup about 2 minutes too late. Adds on there, where was the timeout on the last play when we had 26 seconds to go. But, yeah, no, I agree with you in terms of the 2-man is too big lineup is something that, number one, it lines up with what Michigan State does a lot. They play Kohler and Zapala, or they mix in Booker. They play a lot of 2 bigs. But that's been a good one for Illinois. The metrics say it's been really good, and just the eye test of those guys playing together. And Merez defensively, I don't worry about him in terms of, if he has to guard a 4 and he gets spaced out to the perimeter, guy moves his feet really well and obviously elevates at the rim to block some shots.
Merez has gotten really consistent in terms of, it just feels like every game he comes in, gives you his 20 minutes, and he makes a loud impact. I think his finishing around the rim has improved a lot from early in the year to where it felt like, whoa, he's got a ways to go here. He's missing some bunnies, and now he's had some strong, just, shoulder into a guy finish at the rim, some putbacks that have been tougher. And I just really love everything about Merez. Like every minute you can get Merez on the floor, whether it's with Tommy or without him, I think positive things usually happen for Illinois, especially on the defensive end where I thought Illinois was getting eaten up at the rim. And Merez was a part of that too. Gave up a couple uncharacteristic offensive rebounds, but I just don't think Tommy's the same presence as Merez in terms of a rim protector and his ability to just, move his feet defensively and play that drop effectively with his athleticism. But the Tommy passing has really been impressive this week. We've known it, but Illinois has gone to more action run through him these last 2. He had 4 assists against Indiana, 5 in this one. Should have been more because he had a few passes that led to fouls where Will Riley smoked and one, and Kylan missed a layup on a cut when he got fouled. I just was really impressed with the way Tommy handled that, and I thought Illinois found their most effective offense when they were playing through Tommy at the top of the key or on one of the wings, as opposed to, it felt like when Kylan was trying to make something happen, just, He's had his moments too. He was great in that Penn State game when KJ was out, but part of me almost feels like, hey, if KJ's not going to play, the 8 minutes that KJ doesn't play, hopefully it's not 31 minutes again, but if there's 8 minutes he doesn't play, maybe you go more to that, where you go with the two bigs and you run some high-low stuff, or you just play through Tommy a little bit more. And I thought Illinois also gave Tommy a lot of help because guys were active moving without the ball more than we've seen at times. And even in that game, there was a stretch where it felt like nobody was moving, and then guys, when Tommy had it, guys were cutting, and Illinois just had such a size advantage over Michigan State that you needed to find a way to take advantage of that, and I think they found it with some of those lob passes from Tommy where he's throwing it to 6'8" Will Riley, guarded by 6'2", whoever it is, and that's effective. So I thought that was a nice adjustment and wrinkle that Illinois made that had some success to it. You almost wonder if they had done some of it a little bit earlier. Like the texter said, you go to that two big lineup, run some of that stuff 3 minutes earlier. Do you prevent that 9-1 Michigan State run? I don't know, but I was impressed with the way Tommy handled things, and his passing is off the charts for a big.
That's a great call on Will Riley against smaller defenders, where you don't get to take advantage of that matchup if he's like spaced to the corner, right, and a 6'2" guy. When he's getting the head of steam downhill, you're stretching the big out because of the three-point shooting from Tommy, and that allows Will. Now, Will, to his credit, in this game, we saw him maybe finish as tough and effectively through contact at the rim against size as he has in a long time, if not all of this year. So that was something that he definitely added. But, yeah, no, and I agree, too, about just creating action where it does get stagnant sometimes, where if the pick and roll doesn't open anything up or pick and pop, then the other guys are kind of standing around watching that. I love the cutting off the opposite wing perimeter, and then of course you get the two-man game with Tommy and Merez as well. Quick note on Merez: in Big Ten play, 65% from the field, 67% from the free throw line.
That's another thing. He's really knocked him down a lot better at the line.
Big time. I know he missed 3 against Michigan State, 5 of 8. 3 of 3 against Indiana, made both against USC, missed a couple against Penn State, but all in all, you'll take 67% all day long from him.
Absolutely.
Knowing that it wasn't that way earlier in the season. Let's get Brad's thoughts. He talked about Merez and then also the passing of Tommy and what that opened up.
I mean, it's a nice luxury to have a guy like Merez, and Merez I thought was exceptional. He gave us a real presence at the rim. I thought defensively he was tremendous. He finished, got to the foul line, put some foul pressure on him. And, the value Tommy gives us offensively is really hard to replace. All those cuts late were his passing. And when you can shoot it like Tommy, you have to push up and guard him. And, unfortunately, Tommy made 4 or 5 the other night at Indiana. When you're sick, you just feel like mush, and he did. But his passing was spot on, and Merez's play was impactful as well.
Good stuff there from Brad Underwood, who was understandably a little feisty yesterday in the post-game press conference. Came in with a big sigh, and the first 4 questions were to Michigan State reporters, which as a visiting guy I didn't ultimately love. Don't need to go on a soapbox there, but I know we're probably not going to get to the clip, but one he was particularly peeved about the idea, what did Michigan State do to stop KJ? And he was like, nothing. So
and true.
And true.
Very true.
And true. But yeah, I mean, Merez keeps coming on, like you said, really established, consistent role. I want to mention it again. I think Dre's been playing really good basketball.
He has.
And it's just activity is obviously there. Offensive rebounding, drew a foul on one to create a second chance. And then,
how many offensive rebounds did he have in this game? Had to be 2 or 3 at least.
That's a good question. I have it pulled up in front of me. He had 4.
4 offensive rebounds from your 6'1" guard off the bench. That's awesome.
7 points, 4 offensive rebounds in 21 minutes.
And Will had 3 too. The bench was really good. Like that. To be fair to some of the gripes offensively and just the fact that Illinois kind of let the game get away, playing without KJ in that environment and your bench giving you that chance to win. I mean, that was big time. And Illinois has had other guys start to step up here for the last month. After we had the conversation, it was one of the days right before I left where we were talking about, well, the depth on this team just is non-existent right now. Got a lot more now when you got that three-man trio coming off your bench with Dre, Will, and Merez. And even Jake Davis is giving you quality minutes. And I'll be honest with you, in November, I would have told you, please don't play Jake Davis at all in the conference game at the Breslin Center. And he's knocking a three down, and he doesn't stick out as a guy that's getting beat either. And that's a credit to him.
If someone wanted to do it, right, and I'm not suggesting that they do, but could submit a little old takes exposed on me on this show. And
I shared your opinion.
I was like, why is Jake Davis getting the minutes he's getting? He plays with really good activity, and obviously he has the perimeter shot making as well. And Brad's talked about his toughness too. And it's not like a full on bench mob like in the NBA where you're cycling, kind of like a line change 5 for 5, and they play the whole second quarter. I know back in the heyday of the D Rose days with the Bulls, you had the C.J. Watsons and I can't remember. Taj Gibson was part of that group. But you get some of the depth that we talked about with this team, and I love how all of them play pretty much really hard and have a grittiness to them. And then when Will can make shots like that, and again, 3 offensive rebounds for him, I think he's been a lot more active here of late, which has been a big deal. All right, we're due for a break. We're going to talk some national title game before we get out of here. Got to do that. Kyle mentioned that, and that's a good call. But break. Before we do that, though, I need to do some work. Let me tell you about Busey. As the needs of customers grow, Busey continues to expand its digital footprint, allowing you to bank when and how you want, whether it's personal or business banking, opening an account, or requesting an appointment. You can do it all from the convenience of your home with Busey's eBank, their online and mobile banking tool. You can check balances, view transactions, transfer funds, pay bills, and more. You can also get the Busey mobile app to deposit checks, provide travel plans, analyze spending habits. To find the Busey mobile app, just go to the App Store or Google Play. You can also go online if you just want to access on your laptop, your tablet. Save a trip to the bank and apply for a new checking or savings account. Online application for personal and recreational vehicles also available as well. All of that allows you to skip the line and schedule appointments online for services relating to personal checking, mortgage, wealth management. Questions about how to bank from the comfort and safety of your home, Busey is here to help. Contact a member of their customer care team, 1-800-67-BUSEY, or visit their many convenient locations. Busey, member FDIC.
Take charge of the years ahead with a smart, sound investment strategy and business succession plan. Busey Bank's business and wealth management experts help you envision your best future with powerful insights and proven strategies. Building business and growing wealth since 1868, Busey Bank, proud to be the official bank of the Fighting Illini, member FDIC.
Want unbeatable prices on your next furniture purchase, but also seeking that local hometown feel? Look no further than Kelsey Furniture in Tuscola. Customers rave about their friendly, established staff, as well as their great selection, amazing prices, and second-to-none delivery service. They're a third-generation local business, and they've always got your best interests at heart. Find the look you love for less. Open 9 to 5 Monday through Saturday, but always available online at kelseyfurniture.com. That's kelseyfurniture.com.
Sarah Champagne's Ben Quattrone on keeping his employees.
It's got to be the place to work. We have to pay the best. We have to treat people the best. Some of the guys wanted to order pizza the other day. Well, we bought 30 Papa Del's pizzas. BMW had the best month they've ever had. They said, can we have a cookout? Saturday, I cooked like 50 ribeye steaks. And they were expecting like cheese, burgers and hot dogs and stuff. Like, if I'm eating steak, you're eating steak. We both eat steak, we both eat hamburger.
Learn more at sarahchampagne.com.
Good morning, First Federal Savings Bank. How may I direct your call?
Speak with friendly, real people during lobby hours. It matters when you call First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana. A real person located at the bank. Not a recording answers your call during lobby hours. Personal, friendly service makes a difference. 217-356-BANK.
Thank you for calling. Have a great day.
Rated 5-star superior by Bauer Financial, Inc. Fast, friendly, and local with local loan decisions and underwriting. If you're not already banking with us, give us a try. We think you'll love it here. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. NMLS 435120.
We all have a mission in life, something that drives us to explore, to grow, to love. And when we discover it, we're made whole. At OSF Healthcare, we want you to be the best you possible. We're here for you on your schedule to make your life just a little bit easier. Whatever your mission is, we're here to support it. Your life, our mission. Learn more at osfhealthcare.org/mission.
PDR Automotive has now been serving the Champaign-Urbana area for over 50 years. To give you some perspective, 50 years ago ended the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, and it was when Secretariat won the Triple Crown. So what does that mean for you and your vehicle? Whether you need a carburetor overhauled or your new vehicle computer system diagnosed or programmed, PDR Automotive has the experienced, knowledgeable staff that can handle all your automotive needs. Online at pdrauto.com, they are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR.
Get the roof your home deserves by Roof Doctors, your residential roofing specialist that has always offered the best warranties in the industry, like our non-prorated 50-year warranty. Our customers love that we are family-owned and locally operated. We make our customer needs our top priority. With over 30 years experience and the best customer service, give Roof Doctors a call today for your free estimate at 328-7529. In your community and for your community, Roof Doctors.
At Pards in Urbana, the boots just keep on coming. They're known for their huge collection of men's cowboy boots, women's cowgirl boots, kids' boots, and even shoes. If you're searching for top footwear brands, look no further than Pards. They carry a wide variety, including Ariat, Dan Post, Smoky Mountain, Roper, Double H, and more. And if socks or accessories are what you need, they've got all your high-quality essentials. Since 1968, Pards has been serving their customers with high-quality merchandise. And if you haven't been to Pards in a while, a lot has changed. Go check them out just off University Avenue in Urbana.
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Before we get out of here, we got to talk a little national title game, Ohio State and Notre Dame tonight. Any major thoughts, NFL playoffs?
Mark Andrews, come on, man. Come on. There's a chance to take down Buffalo. I know I'm the only one here that cares that Buffalo advanced because I don't like Buffalo. They're in my division. But that just was tough. I mean, Lamar made a hell of a throw. Great drive. The Ravens outplayed Buffalo other than the turnovers in that game. I mean, they outgained them by like 200 yards. And Mark Andrews fumbles and then drops a game-tying two-point conversion. And, man, that hurt. That's got to hurt if you're a Ravens fan. They've been so close here with Lamar, and they lose another one in a heartbreaker.
Tough. Yeah, and Lamar's been so good, and we talked about it last week. His numbers are better than Josh Allen's in terms of counting stats, and won the head-to-head during the regular season. Now, obviously, lost this one, but you could easily make a case that he should win his third MVP, but has not been able to get it done in the playoffs. Not all to his doing, especially in this last game. I admittedly did not get to see it. We were on the road back from East Lansing. I know he threw a bad pick.
I certainly wouldn't place the blame of that game on him because I thought he made some huge plays in the second half. He did throw a horrible pick that led to a Buffalo touchdown and fumbled that led to a Buffalo field goal, I think. So part of it's still on him.
Yeah.
You can't turn it over twice. That's why they lost. I mean, Baltimore outplayed them other than the turnovers.
And I wouldn't have had a problem either way with either one of those squads advancing as long as they
Please beat the Chiefs.
Go do the deal in Kansas City.
Man,
and knock them off.
That matchup is my personal nightmare. Respectfully, that one is going to hurt me. But I honestly am going to be rocking with Josh Allen and the Bills. I can't take the Chiefs anymore. Please beat the Chiefs. I'm done with them. I'm done with Mahomes getting another flag because he slides late. And
sounds like that was bad. I didn't get to see that one either.
On a just horrible call. Just someone please take him out. Jaden Daniels or whoever it is, the Eagles or Josh Allen at this point. I'll put my hands up and say if the Bills do it, I'll be happy.
Should I worry? I know this is obviously more of a joke than anything serious. Like now that Caitlin Clark is roped into this Mahomes Mafia, I know it's more of a Kelsey thing actually. But yeah. I like Caitlin Clark. I think obviously, she's a baller, but
you know that if those two are sitting together during the Super Bowl, I don't know if they have enough camera angles to keep throwing that way. Like we'll see more of that than the game if that's the case.
I know. The one game I did get to see, actually from a sports bar in East Lansing, which was full of Lions fans, and there's me and Joey Wagner, me a Bears fan, Joey Wagner a Packers fan, and. Look, the Lions are a likable team. They've got a lot of talent. They're fun to watch. But we were kind of sitting there like, hey, our teams aren't in it. Let's watch them.
Did either of you guys go full villain mode, or did you just kind of sit in the corner and like, I'm liking this, but I'm going to sit back here?
I don't want to out him too much, but Joey was a little vocal. Like, he was semi trying to hide it, semi trying to, like, when something bad would happen, he would audibly be like, oh, no. Darn it. Like, yeah.
So I'm sure he was loving the Quan Martin pick 6, though.
He was. And Nick Allegretti getting to another
that guy just pumps out conference title appearances.
We should be trading for him. The Bears need to be traded for Nick Allegretti.
The Bears had a chance to sign him this past offseason. He went to Washington, although I'm sure he's quite happy with that decision.
Yep.
Sorry. Not anymore, though. Hey, maybe Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
there's some hope now. Maybe we'll actually get a full view of the Jaden Daniels Caleb debate that just keeps firing up. Of like, well, the Bears screwed it up again.
I know.
Let's see Caleb Williams with a real coach first,
no doubt. And look, Jaden Daniels, I'm comfortable even as somebody that wants to win, be on the right side of that argument. Jaden Daniels is awesome.
He is a beast. Yeah.
So I got no problem saying that. It's just way too early to call it as a massive mistake or an easy. It obviously wasn't an easy choice. There were people out there, I think Dan Orlovsky is tweeting every day, probably throughout the rest of the postseason, that he said during the offseason that the Bears should take Jaden Daniels, which you're going to have people plant their flags on certain guys. But, he's been great.
I mean, it was a really impressive performance going into Detroit. I realized that the Lions had a ton of injuries on their defense, but they'd still been playing well. They had just held the Vikings to 9 in that conference or that division title game in Week 18. And Jaden Daniels, I mean, they were 3 of 4 on 4th down, all of them passing attempts. Like every 3rd down, he had an answer. They tried to blitz him, and he found the right guy every time. It's just a really impressive performance for a rookie to go in there with a far inferior roster against a team that had dominated all year and just come up with every answer and play as well as he did. He is awesome. He's a stud.
I know Ford Field isn't up there with some of the top environments, like probably off the top of your head, if you say, what are the toughest places to play in the NFL? But that place is loud, man. Their tickets were, $500 a pop to just get in the door to go to a playoff game there. So to hang 45 in that game, ultimately, I know that there were some turnovers and Goff throws a pick 6 and all of that, but yeah, Commanders Cinderella, and we'll see how much magic's left there when they go to Philly. I didn't see really any of that Eagles-Rams game. It did look like, just score watching a little bit after the post-game stuff, that are we really going to get Rams Commanders for an NFC title game? It's got more juice that's an Eagles interdivision rival versus the Commanders.
I'll tell you what, it would be incredible to root for a team that has an offensive line like Philadelphia's. Like
right?
It's staggering turning them on and seeing their offensive line just bully people. Saquon's got a wide open hole every time. Now Saquon's a beast too.
Yep.
But that offensive line, Jalen Hurts never gets touched. that's Philadelphia's team right there. Is that offensive line is the best in the league. Their run game is unstoppable with Hurts and Saquon behind that line. They just ran over the Rams a little bit too much. Saquon broke off a big run there in the fourth quarter to put them up 2 scores, and ultimately their defense held them off. But that offensive line is insane. Jalen Hurts has had to do nothing this postseason except sit back there occasionally, pick up a third down, hand it to Saquon, and that's it.
No doubt. Yeah, and Barkley is ridiculous, man. And I know that Hurts, he scampered for the first touchdown of that game, like a long 44-yard run. But yeah, they haven't had to ask him to do too much with his arm coming off of. I know he was injured late there in that regular season. I want to ask you, as somebody that sat back and watched the postseason here. I know you're a fan of a warm weather team, even though you're from Chicago. Saw Kay Adams tweet about it. Some other people kind of weighing in, like, does the snow game get too much credit? Is it overrated? Like, we like the football elements, but then I think Kurt Warner went off on this as well, as on a clip that was going around Twitter as well. Like, are we? And I've mentioned it before, like, as a Midwesterner, I'm mad that the Bears are going to be playing indoors as their home games here in the not too distant future. But where do you stand on the playoff game with the snow? It's probably going to sound dumb. Is there a point where it's too much or that it ruins the product? Obviously, like, we think of the Brady Tuck rule game when you got to, like, start shoveling a spot for the kicker to kick. I can get it can be ugly. I still like seeing snow in playoff games. That's just me.
I was shocked that passes were getting completed and offenses are moving down the field, because all I've seen in cold weather snow games is a team that can't move the ball 1 yard. And it looks like they don't want to be out there, right. And everything's difficult. They forgot the forward pass existed. Like, it's just so I was surprised. But
you can do that, huh?
I think really, from a viewer's perspective, I loved watching 2 snow games yesterday and just seeing that. And I think really what it comes down to is it makes the game about the physicality and the guys up front, and it minimizes. Like, that's why part of the reason why the Dolphins are so awful in the snow too, or in cold weather in general, is because they're built on speed, and speed gets neutralized when it's 10 degrees and snowing out. And you have to go in with your physicality. Your offensive line has to open up stuff for your run game, and your pass rush has to get home. And I think that's really what it comes down to in those games. But from a viewer's perspective, I just think there's something cool about snow coming down in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, like in Buffalo and Philly. And I just think that's really, you got to want it, and you got to tough the game out. Like, you have to be the tougher team to win in those conditions. And I think that's sometimes even more deserved than some of these games that have crazy stuff happen. Like, you win a 10-degree game, you have earned it because you went out there and were tougher.
Maybe I'll feel differently at a point if, like, Caleb Williams has to go to wherever it would be in the playoffs. It's still playing outdoor football. Obviously, Green Bay, don't do that to me. I know how not in the playoffs, but just in general. Although, yeah.
Hey, since I've been gone, the Bears beat the Packers.
They did.
Come on now.
I was in Seattle, Washington, getting ready to cover a Illinois versus the Huskies game. I barely saw it. I flipped it on my YouTube TV on my computer in the final moments and saw that they had blown like a 2-score lead and were about to lose the game. But you can never, like, try to do too many mental gymnastics when you're given an opportunity to take in a win over the Packers. So I appreciated it big time. Yes, Jordan Love barely played and so on and so forth. It barely mattered for Green Bay, and our season had been done since pre-Halloween. But anyways, thank you. I loved it.
I'm sure. Although, I guess if you weren't watching it closely, it's different. But when the Bears have the ball down 1 or 2 coming down, you're just waiting for something to go wrong, right? Like, there's no way this actually will happen. They'll miss another field goal or holding call with 10 seconds left. Like, I was watching that closely that week, and I'm like, something's going to happen here. It's the same thing that happened in Chicago. Packers will find a way.
Stash a timeout in your back pocket and just let the game clock run out. You could do that. That's already been done. We got to think of new creative ways to lose. Anyways, all right. I didn't save enough time for this, and we can.
Well, if there's news that's going to break shortly, maybe we should get to it. Otherwise,
you think there will
could
be
do it tomorrow?
I have a feeling we will be talking about this going forward throughout the week, but international recruiting has been texted in a couple of times as far as Illinois basketball. I wrote about it here recently. If you follow and subscribe to Illini Inquirer, you've been able to read up on the guys that Orlando Antigua and Jeff Alexander went out and saw here. So, I'll just leave it at that then. I think as the week goes on here in the near future, we'll be talking quite a bit more about what that looks like for Illinois and maybe a splash that they're going to make here coming up. So we'll discuss that in due time, but until then, catch a break and let's get some thoughts on the national title game. Illinois. Wouldn't that be great?
Maybe next year. They're in some top 10s now.
Ohio State and Notre Dame tonight. We'll be back for that. It is The Drive.
Sarah Champagne managing partner Ben Quattrone on why integrity is important at Sarah.
We hire the person. The person makes the deal. The person makes the department. The person makes everyone around them treat people with courtesy and respect. If you have a quality human being, you can play any position, right? We're talking about sports. They can perform in any department, and I could teach someone a job, but I can't teach them to be a good person.
Learn more at sarahchampagne.com. That's SERRA Champagne.com.
Hi, I'm Tyler Weaver, president of Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery. It's time to come home to Carpet Weavers. We don't want you to just like your new floors. We want you to love them. From waterproof floors and carpet to furnitures and design advice, we've got a team of experts on your side. We'll get you the best price and the best quality products. And complete your home with furniture and accessories. Buy it all with free financing too. Come home to Carpet Weavers, where floors, furniture, and family meet.
Dedicated Diesel, home of the Dixie Chopper, still got Gail Frerich's used Dixie Chopper laying around the yard there? Or?
Yeah, I believe Gail's is still there. It is a great machine, a big classic, and then we have a couple more really good used models I'd like to get rid of before the snow's gone. But now's the time to check out some great deals while your grass is covered up. I know most people aren't thinking about mowing yet, but this is the time that the prices are going to be the lowest.
How can people reach Tim Onstad?
They can get me at TIMO@GFTLOG.com and call the office at 765-793-7131. Get a hold of Andy. The shop is 1313 Triumph Drive in Urbana, 217-328-0562, or Dedicated Equipment on Facebook.
You're the man. Thank you so much, Tim. Always a pleasure. Thanks,
you. Thanks, guys.
You bet. Kelsey Furniture in downtown Tuscola sells Tempur-Pedic beds. What's it like?
I'm going to tell you right now, Stevie, that thing is the best thing I've ever slept on in my life. My wife and I both have said we've never had better night's sleep. And the people at Kelsey's were fantastic. Brian is the guy that helped us. You know, as much as I did my research, he had a world of knowledge about beds themselves. Oh, man, it's like sleeping on a cloud, man.
Kelsey Furniture, downtown Tuscola.
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. All right, let's talk some national title game. We did have Matt on the Max Twin City Recycling text line said, I know you guys hate to hear this, but all caps, go Ohio State. I really hate Notre Dame. They were offered to join the Big Ten, turned us down. I believe it's because they wouldn't go 11-1 in this conference. It's interesting, Kyle, in the old ways of doing it, even as recent as the... Am I correct in saying this? Even if it was still the 4-team playoff? I mean, yeah, these are the, 6 and 7 seeds. I know that you have some automatic bids topping that. If this was last year's structure, neither one of these teams make the playoff, or do they?
I think Notre Dame still does.
Yeah, you're right.
They were the 6 seed, and Arizona State and who else was it? Boise State would not have made it. It would have been Georgia and Oregon for sure. And then probably, Actually, Notre Dame maybe doesn't get in. I think there's a good chance Penn State and Texas get in over Notre Dame. It'd be a debate in
For
that
sure.
group, and I think Ohio State would certainly have not gotten in after
No
they
doubt.
lost to Michigan. Can we talk about this real quick, though?
Yeah.
Because this text is interesting. I've never been somebody who's been a fan of Notre Dame at all. Like
I'm with you.
I've hated the fact that they're not in a conference. It's just there's something about Notre Dame. The fact they've got their own, they do their own thing. They're on NBC all by themselves. I just have never liked Notre Dame, and I was never a fan of Brian Kelly when he was there.
Awful. Yep.
Something in me has really kind of liked this year's Notre Dame team, though. I feel like Marcus Freeman, I just have a ton of respect for what he's done. It just feels like he's one of those guys that just has a tough team, that it's not necessarily the one, like even in some of these games against Georgia, like they don't have the best athletes on the field or everything, but they're just physical. They grind you out. Their defense is great. And just made Notre Dame a little bit more likable for me. And maybe it's just the fact the opponents they've gone against, like I'm not rooting for Georgia to win again. No thanks on Penn State. Indiana, I was kind of didn't really have an opinion on that one. But I don't know. Something about me has kind of liked following this Notre Dame story. I haven't minded seeing them go on this little run here. And I certainly will be rooting for them tonight.
I don't have a problem with it. I, like you, there's been still kind of either a little bit of the mystique of Notre Dame, but even just the prestige or just the high regard that they hold themselves to. That's where I didn't live through all the success prior, where you're talking whatever the eras were where they were, winning national championships and everything. It was more so the lingering who they're supposed to be, and it never performed up to that. You had a really good Brady Quinn year that one time, and I know that was the Reggie Bush tush push game and everything, but outside of that, there's been far more, Jimmy Clausen's and just not living up to who they're supposed to be. I mean, they were in a title game, Manti Te'o, and got crushed. With you 1,000,000% on Brian Kelly. Loved watching him get beat. Just whatever it is about him. That was photo shoot thing that went viral at LSU, which was very cringeworthy. But I don't have a problem with Notre Dame. And now as a Bears fan, I don't have to sit here and worry if they win the title, they might hire Marcus Freeman as the head coach. Where I did see a clip, Colin Cowherd's like, Marcus Freeman's the closest thing out there to Sean McVay. I'm like, why? I don't know. I don't know how that. I didn't listen to the clip. I don't know enough about it. It would be fine and a cool story to come back from the Northern Illinois upset and then be able to win a title. And you're really, if you're a Big Ten fan, it's kind of a no-win situation. Now, you do get to probably laugh at the fact of the SEC and all the fan base and all those that beat the drum for let's put 6 of the 8 teams in there of SEC, and you guys don't know what it's like to go through the gauntlet that is that and all that, and then to have the Big Ten turn around and win back-to-back national championships, albeit if you're not Ohio State or Michigan, you're not probably too fond of either one of those. So I could see that. I don't have a big rooting interest on it. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's a game that goes down to the wire, that's fun to watch. Notre Dame has a very good defense. I don't know if they can score enough in this game, ultimately, as I look at it. Ohio State's defense has been very much improved this year, and Jack Sawyer's awesome, and then that sack fumble return for a touchdown against Quinn Ewers was a pretty awesome play, and then can you stop Jeremiah Smith on the other side? So I do appreciate the fact that Will Howard has really stepped his game up. He kind of came out talking that they haven't seen me as I up to the level. I was listening to driving up to Chicago, but about to fly out west, and listen on the radio before the Oregon game, and apparently Howard talking some smack in the pregame. Like they don't know what's coming. They haven't seen me at this level, and to his credit, that he's played at a really high level here recently, and a lot better than he did when he had a costly pick, or maybe even 2 against Michigan. I don't know. I'm picking Ohio State. I don't have a firm, what's the score going to be. Mike says his prediction on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Notre Dame 31, Ohio State 24. I don't know if I see Notre Dame getting that high.
I don't.
Are you? So you're pulling for Notre Dame. Who do you think is going to win?
I have a feeling that Ohio State blows them out.
Yeah.
That's my feeling heading into the game. If I had to give an official prediction, I think Ohio State wins by like 17. I think it's going to be hard for Notre Dame to move the ball. The way this Ohio State defense has played throughout this playoff, and the fact that Notre Dame is kind of a one-dimensional offense. Riley Leonard made a big play through the air. Now, part of that was a corner fell down against Penn State, that long touchdown. But, they can hit some third downs and whatnot. But Leonard's just not that great of a thrower, and there's just not a lot of talent at receiver on this Notre Dame team. And so I think really for Notre Dame, they're going to try to run the ball like they always do. And Leonard's going to try to get some, design quarterback run stuff. And I just think Ohio State's going to be able to stop it. I don't know. I just think it's going to be hard for Notre Dame to move the ball. And Ohio State's just so loaded that they'll get to 20-something. As good as Notre Dame's defense has played, the path for me for Notre Dame winning is like a 20-17 or like a 17-13 or something where their defense just shows up and maybe a defensive score happens. This game's in the upper 20s, pushing 30. I'd be stunned if Notre Dame's the team on top. I just think that feeds right into what Ohio State wants to do. And I don't know. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Notre Dame. But I'm going to be pulling for Notre Dame because I just cannot root for this Ohio State team. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the $22 million they spent on the roster. Maybe it's Ryan Day, who I don't know. Just something about his look is just like, I can't. I'm not a big fan of his. And it's just Big Ten rival. I don't know. Some people are like, well, I'm a Big Ten fan. Go Big Ten. No, that's not. I don't operate that way. If it's another Big Ten team, I'm not going to root for you. So
217, Derek, please. I think that's to the whole storyline of from. Look, I'm not going to sit there. Oh, that's a cute story.
No,
from
it's
Northern
not,
Illinois lost on that. I'm saying maybe what National might pick up and everything. You know what they'll pick up on the other side is. Everyone in Columbus wanted Ryan Day fired, and look, you just won a national title. How'd you come back from that? I'm not going to be super appeased by that either.
That's a pretty stupid one, too.
It's pretty dumb,
It was
right?
stupid in the first place to want him fired.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, if they went and lost the first-round game to Tennessee, I get it. I think it probably was a more fair question that I didn't have a great answer to because I gave it a little bit more of consideration than some did.
I thought they would do it. I thought that they would very reasonably do it. I just find it insane that a guy who's 50-5 is on the hot seat.
That's fair.
Could you imagine?
I mean, it is a different level of expectation, but yeah, I mean, we had the whole Jim Harbaugh conversation. There could have been a quick trigger if they were a little more trigger happy in Michigan and not riding that thing out. They might have fired Jim Harbaugh right before he was about to turn that into a powerhouse and win a national title. So I didn't have a good enough answer on who the replacement should be if they did make that move. I said Cignetti, but I don't know. I don't think he's a flash in the pan in Indiana, but there's a difference level into a pop up and cool story at Indiana versus being in the limelight and trying to be a powerhouse on the national scale at Ohio State. But anyways, 217. I hope OSU blasts the Domers 50-7. Never want anything good for them. Not that I care about OSU. Big Def is offering up. Crucial this year of the new national footprint to clearly show Illinois won 10 games as a member of the most dominant conference in the country. Let's put the exclamation point on that. Go Buckeyes. Illinois didn't play Ohio State, so I know that there's that maybe counter argument. Played Oregon and Penn State. I'm not trying to push back too much on a Def, but I think Indiana fans are way too harping on the fact, hey, our two losses are to the best two teams in the country. Let's not play we're so good because our two losses are good. Maybe I'm tying those two things together.
The quality loss thing, it comes back to the NCAA tournament. Well, this is a good loss. Well,
yeah, and
no loss is good. There's losses that don't hurt you as much as others, but look at this impressive loss we had. I've never liked that.
I will give credence again. Like